What's happening around the world?
And what's happening here at home? A very good evening. You're watching Primetime News here on TV1. Bringing you the news, I'm Hashini Pathirana.
And I'm Sandru Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
ICC Women's T20 World Cup kicks off. We'll act in a manner that honors the mandate of the people. An assurance from the President.
ජනතාවගේ ජනවරමේ ගෞරවය රකින්න පාලනයක් අපිට අවශ්‍යයි. ඒ නිසා මම හිතන්නේ අපි දන්නවා දේහේ පුරාම පැතිරී තිබෙන මේ වංචාව, දූෂණය, නාස්තිය අපි නතර කරන්න ඕනේ.
Ranil has no connection to the bomb scam. Former President's Director General of Media quotes the Commission report and judgment. Pensions of former central bank governors under criminal investigation or trial suspended. Alliance discussions disrupted. UNP to contest under the gas cylinder. SJB to contest under the telephone. Former President Sirisena's son Baham Sirisena joins the Maubima Janatha Party. Group from the SLFP prepares to support the NPP.
දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ රැස්වීම තියනකොට අපිට කියන්න නැහැ කියමුකෝ. අපි යන්නේ නැහැ. අපි රැස්වීම තියලා කියනවා දෙන්න මාලිමාවට ඡන්දය. ඔව් එච්චරයි. ඒක නරකද?
Local government election to be held soon after the conclusion of the general election.
The IMF high-level delegation met President Anura Kumar Dissanayake for talks.
President Anura Kumar Dissanayake has said that the government plans to expand social spending and offer relief to those burdened by high VAT and income taxes. He had made these comments during a meeting with the high-level delegation from the International Monetary Fund. The President's media division said that President Anura Kumar Dissanayake had reaffirmed the commitment to IMF objectives and also advocated for alternative solutions to ease the burden, while reaffirming the government's broad agreement in principle with the objectives of the IMF program. President Anura Kumar Dissanayake also emphasized the importance of achieving the program objectives through alternative means that relieve the burden of the people.
The International Monetary Fund says that sustaining reform momentum is critical for Sri Lanka. Julie Kozak, the director of the IMF Communications Department, responding to a question posed by Newsfirst Zulfiq Farzan at a press conference in Washington, D.C., said that Sri Lanka's program performance is strong and reform efforts are bearing fruit.
Sri Lanka recently elected its new president. And now the president has also declared the 14th of November as the parliamentary elections. Now, Sri Lanka is facing a kind of an impasse where you have one faction saying that they will go ahead with the IMF program, while another faction contesting the upcoming polls wants to change the IMF program. Given this situation, is there any possibility of sticking with the program, or is the review going to change, or is the deadline, the program review going to be pushed back?
So first, just stepping back to remind, on June 12th, 2024, the IMF Executive Board completed the 2024 Article 4 consultation and the second review under the EFF program with Sri Lanka, providing the country with immediate access to about 336 million to support its economic policies and reforms. Program performance is strong and reform efforts are bearing fruit in terms of reviving economic growth, lowering inflation, boosting reserves, and improving revenue mobilization. However, as we have said before, important vulnerabilities and uncertainties do remain, and this means that sustaining reform momentum is critical. Right now, a high-level team led by our director of the Asia-Pacific Department, Krista Srinivasan, is currently visiting Colombo to meet with President Dissanayake and his new economic team. The delegation is discussing with the authorities the latest economic developments and their economic reform objective. Dates for the third review under the EFF will be announced in due course, and this delegation will communicate when their visit concludes, and we'll have more information for you at that time. On the question on the bondholders, what I can say is that on September 18th, Sri Lanka and the international bondholder representatives reached an agreement in principle subject to confirmation of comparability of treatment by Sri Lanka's official creditor committee. And this does represent a some significant progress in Sri Lanka's debt restructuring process.
President Anura Kumar Dissanayake affirmed his commitment to supporting public servants who dedicate themselves to creating an efficient, citizen-focused public service. The President expressed these views during a meeting with ministry officials after assuming office as the Minister of Agriculture, Lands, Livestock, Irrigation, Fisheries and Aquatic Resources this morning.
President Anura Kumar Dissanayake assumed duties as the Minister of Agriculture, Lands, Livestock, Irrigation, Fisheries and Aquatic Resources this morning. Thereafter, the President held a discussion with the Ministry Secretaries and other officials. He assured that under his leadership, there will be no room for political revenge.
The people want an efficient, people-centered public service. The public believes widespread fraud and corruption have contributed to the country's economic collapse and that the current mandate is focused on preventing such practices. Where do we get the power from? We get our power from the Constitution, but that power is created through the will of the people. We need a governance system that honors this will and safeguards the trust the people have in it. I believe we must put an end to the corruption and deceit that permeate throughout the body politic. On the other hand, if you encounter difficulties in fulfilling the responsibilities assigned to you, know that we are here to support you in your efforts. I understand that many public servants have faced unfortunate consequences in the past because of the limitations imposed on them in their duties. In every effort you make to fulfill your responsibilities, we stand by you. If you face any challenges in this process, we are here to support you.
The former President's Director General of Media, issuing a statement, said that the Presidential Commission that investigated the bond scam had released Ranil Wickremesinghe of all charges and determined that he was not connected to the bond scam. The former President's Director General of Media, Danushka Ramanayake, issued this communique in response to a statement made by Cabinet spokesperson Vijitha Herath.
The statement released by the former President's Director General of Media, Danushka Ramanayake, highlights the fact that then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had initiated an inquiry through the Committee on Public Enterprise. He goes on to note that subsequently an investigation into the bond scam that occurred on the 27th of February 2015 was conducted. Danushka Ramanayake went on to note that a Presidential Commission of Inquiry which included 2 current Supreme Court justices and a former Deputy Auditor General was formed to investigate the bond scam. He points out that a large number of witnesses testified before the Commission, including Ranil Wickremesinghe himself, and that the Commission concluded that Ranil Wickremesinghe was not involved in the bond scam. Danushka Ramanayake says that investigations conducted by the central bank into transactions in the secondary market had concluded that the relevant company had 12 billion rupees in their account and this had not caused any loss to the state. The statement also adds that, however, the Attorney General had filed indictments against 10 individuals, and after the case was taken up before a High Court trial at Bar, comprising of judges Chamat Moraes, Damit Thotavatta and H. Namal Balale, all suspects were acquitted of all charges. It adds that the Attorney General's appeal at the Court of Appeal was dismissed and the judgment has now been appealed to the Supreme Court, which is due to be taken up in January 2025. The statement added that the Attorney General had filed a list including 59 witnesses for the trial against the suspects and that Ranil Wickremesinghe was not even on the list of witnesses. The statement stressed that there had never been a need to seek any immunity as alleged by Vijitha Herath, nor had there been any request for immunity. The former President's Director General of Media, Danushka Ramanayake, stressed that Ranil Wickremesinghe not only subdued the worst economic crisis the country had faced during a period of 2 years, but also created a peaceful environment in the country that had fallen into an abyss. His statement adds that the independence of the judiciary is well established now and that there is no bar in seeking justice. The statement added that legal action will be taken against the statement made by Cabinet spokesperson Vijitha Herath regarding the central bank bond scam.
We will definitely take steps against the central bank bond scam. Preliminary steps have already been taken. I believe Mahendran's reason for leaving the country, supposedly for a wedding, may no longer be valid. We expect to bring him back to the country soon. Ranil Wickremesinghe is no longer the president and does not have immunity. The case did not proceed earlier due to the constitutional immunity he enjoyed. Now, we have seen the authority to bring him before a court of law. Let's see what unfolds.
The continuous acts of fraud and corruption carried out with the complete disregard for the lives of the people are a major factor responsible for the current state of our nation. There is no debate among the citizens about this. The following is the second of a series of segments, What Happened to Sri Lanka?
What happened to Sri Lanka?
An extraordinary Gazette notification was issued by the Central Bank Governor, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe. This notification announces a decision by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank. According to this decision, the pension of former central bank governors who are under criminal investigation or trial will be suspended starting from the 11th of September. Former central bank governors are entitled to a monthly pension amounting to 74% of their final salary regardless of their length of service. In this episode, we are not going to talk about the pension, however, something at the heart of the central bank. Currently, two former central bank governors, Ajit Nivard Cabral and Arjuna Mahendran, are facing legal proceedings. The actions and decisions of these individuals have had significant and far-reaching impacts on the country. Both were supported by powerful groups during their appointments and tenures. The terms economic assassins and economic crimes became widely known among the public due to their so-called actions. In November last year, the Supreme Court ruled that the fundamental rights of the people have been violated due to the failure to make timely and appropriate economic decisions. Cabral was among those held responsible. Here are the key incidents involving Ajit Nivard Cabral. Cabral first served as a central bank governor from 2006 to 2015 and was reappointed in 2021 to 22. The Yahapalana government, or the government of good governance, investigated and filed cases against him for various actions during his tenure, including the expenses incurred for the Commonwealth Games bid in Hambantota. Although investigations were conducted and legal action was taken regarding the expenses incurred through a promotional company to secure the hosting rights, the case did not proceed due to technical reasons. Do you remember the Greek bonds? In 2012, despite knowing Greece was facing an economic crisis, Cabral invested Sri Lankan funds in Greek bonds, resulting in a loss of 1.84 billion rupees. This case was initially dismissed due to technical reasons, but has been refiled by the Bribery Commission. Economic decisions are the vital aspect in this. Cabral is among those who was criticized for pushing the country towards bankruptcy by insisting on printing money despite warnings from the Monetary Board. Ajit Nivard Cabral faced severe criticism for his decision to pay a $500 million sovereign bond while serving as a State Minister of Finance and later as the Governor of the Central Bank. This decision was made despite the country being on the brink of bankruptcy. Despite having the opportunity to defer the payment and use remaining dollars to purchase essential items like fuel and medicine for the public, Cabral decided to pay the $500 million sovereign bond, and this decision has not yet been thoroughly investigated. At the time, several parties questioned whether there were individuals who stood to gain specific benefits from the repayment of this bond under such difficult circumstances. In 2021, Cabral was reappointed as the governor of the central bank with the powers and privileges of a cabinet minister. One of his first actions upon reappointment was to adjust his pension retroactively. These are just a few instances highlighting the controversial decisions made during his tenure. Next, we come to Arjuna Mahendran. Mahendran, a Singaporean, was appointed as a central bank governor in January 2015 by those in the highest positions in the newly elected government of good governance that vowed to end fraud and corruption despite opposition from the cabinet. The only reason a foreign national was appointed to this position was a personal relationship. Mahendran was appointed to the position in January 2015. Within weeks of his appointment, the infamous bond scam occurred on the 27th of February 2015. Mahendran was accused of issuing bonds in a manner that benefited his relatives, causing significant losses to the country. According to the Auditor General's forensic audit report, the loss incurred to the Employees' Provident Fund alone was over 9 billion rupees. In March 2016, a similar bond scam occurred, and the losses from this incident are yet to be fully calculated. On the 14th of July 2015, Ajit Nivad Cabral said that the loss from the first bond scam was in the trillions. A presidential commission was appointed to investigate the matter and gather evidence. However, the report is currently held in the Department of National Archives and will not be accessible until 2048. Arjuna Mahendran revealed before a parliamentary committee from whom he received instructions to make significant decisions related to the bond scam. Before the committee's report could be published, Parliament was dissolved and the subsequent reports were released with footnotes making it unclear who was responsible. Amidst mounting accusations, Mahendran left the country, allegedly to attend a wedding. The public is well aware of who protected him during this time. Despite a former president signing over 21,000 extradition papers, Mahendran has not been brought back to face justice. Currently, legal proceedings related to the bond scams are ongoing, and an international warrant has been issued for Mahendran's arrest. Interpol has also been notified, but he remains at large. These incidents highlight the actions of two former central bank governors who made significant decisions impacting the country's economy, and the public is now awaiting the enforcement of the law to hold those responsible accountable.
What happened to Sri Lanka?
National Executive Member of National People's Power, K.D. Lalkantha, said that obstacles to the mechanism for investigating corruption and bringing those responsible before the law have been removed. He said that those challenging the system will soon face the consequences. He expressed these views today at a media briefing in Kandy.
ඔබතුමාලා පහුගිය මැතිවරණ වේදිකාවේදී දූෂිතයයි හඳුන්වලා දුන්න පිරිස් අද අභියෝග කරනවා පුළුවන් නම් අපේ එක දූෂණයක් හෝ වංචාවක් හොයලා දෙන්න කියලා. ඒකට CID එක ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙයි.
The Criminal Investigation Department will operate on this. The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption will deal with it. The entire system of the state institutions will function properly for this purpose. All the obstacles that existed within the state institutions have now been removed. New authorities have been appointed to all of these sectors, and the tasks will be carried out efficiently under the leadership of these officers. This process has already begun, and those who challenge it will receive their due place in a matter of days. For the first time in Sri Lanka's history, we now have only 3 people's representatives. Never before has the country seen a situation like this. It is only these 3 who are currently running the country, and while this is a temporary phase, we will continue this management until the next general election, where we aim to establish a governance structure with 25 ministers and 25 deputy ministers. Alongside this management, we are also striving to fulfill some of the people's demands during this period.
ජනතාව ඉල්ලා සිටින ඇතැම් දේවල් ඉෂ්ට කරලා දෙන්න.
Sri Lanka decides.
Discussions between the United National Party and the Samagi Janabala Vega to form an alliance have been disrupted. Today, the UNP, led by party leader Ranil Wickremesinghe, said that they are focusing on contesting under the symbol of the gas cylinder.
Representatives of the United National Party were engaged in discussions at Ranil Wickremesinghe's presidential campaign office located on Flower Road in Colombo. Among those participating in the discussions were former members of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna who supported Ranil Wickremesinghe in the presidential election.
විවිධ අදහස් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මූලික වශයෙන් සියලු දෙනා එකතු වෙලා ඉන්න ඕනි කියන එකඟතාවය තියෙනවා.
සිලින්ඩර් ගන්න නීතිමය ප්‍රශ්න නේද ඔබතුමා?
නෑනේ මැතිවරණ කමිෂන් දීලානේ තියෙන්නේ.
කතා කරන්නේ. මොකෝ පයින්ම?
පයින් ආව අපි සාකච්ඡාව තිබුණානේ අද හිටපු ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ ප්‍රධානත්වයෙන් සන්ධානය ගැන. දැන් සන්ධානය හදාගෙන ඉස්සරහට යන තාම බලන්න.
සිලින්ඩර් යන කැමතිද ඔක්කොම?
කැමති.
අකමැති කගේ කට්ටියක්.
මට නම් දැන්
අර පලා යන කට්ටිය අකමැති වගේ නේ ප්‍රසන්න රණතුංගල වගේ.
නෑ.
නැද්ද කැමතිද? රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා පෙන්ෂන් ගිහිල්ලාද මේ ඔබතුමාලට නිකන් මේ සහයක්ද දෙන්නේ? එතුමා සමුගන්නව කොන දේශපාලනේ?
නෑ එතුමා මම දන්නේ. ඒක නම් මම දන්නේ නැති. එතුමා තමයි මූලාසනේ දරුවේ අද අපේ සාකච්ඡාවේ. පෙන්ෂන් යනවනේ මූලාසනේ.
එතුමා නිකන් කැමැත්තෙන්ද මූලාසනේ ඉන්නේ නැත්නම් ඔබතුමාලා බලෙන් වාඩි කරලා වගේද?
අනේ නෑ කවුරුද එතුමා බලෙන් වාඩි කරන්න පුළුවන් අපිට. එතුමා කැමැත්තේ ඉන්නේ.
පොට්ටු පැත්ත බලාති බලා යන්නේ නැද්ද?
නෑ පොට්ටු එක ගැන කතා කරලා නෑ. පොට්ටු අයින් වුණානේ.
This is what the Samagi Jana Balavega had to say about the alliance proposed by the UNP.
ඒක බාලා ගෑස්නේ ඒකනේ හරි ගියේ නැත්තේ. දැන් එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයත් එක්ක එකතු වෙන්න කියන ඔය සාකච්ඡාවල් ආවම අපේ පැත්තෙනුත් යම් සාධනීය පැත්තෙන් යෝජනාවලියල් අපි ඉදිරිපත් කළා. ඒ සාධනීය පැත්තෙන් අපි යෝජනාවල් ඉදිරිපත් කරාට ජනාධිපතිතුම මේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ නායකතුමා එක්ක ඉන්න යම් කණ්ඩායමක් ඉන්නවා. ඉතින් ඒ කණ්ඩායම ලෑස්ති නැහැ. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය වෙනස් වෙලා අපි එක්ක ඇවිල්ලා වැඩ කරන්න. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕනේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ මේ ඉන්න විදියටම තියාගෙන ගිහිල්ලා ඔය තියෙන ටිකක් නැති කරගන්න තමයි ඒගොල්ලන්ට අවශ්‍ය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඇත්තටම ඔවුන් ලැජ්ජ වෙන්න ඕනේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ලකුණෙන් ඔවුන්ට එන්න බෑනේ. දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ හදන්නේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහව දිනවන්න ඒ හිටපු පොදු ජන පෙරමුණේ හිටපු කණ්ඩායමත් එකතු කරගෙන අපිත් එක්ක එන්න තමයි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ යෝජනාවලියේ තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒකට අපි ලෑස්ති නැහැ. ඒක තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ යෝජනා කරන්නේ.
පුදුමාලා මේ සත්‍යත් පක්ෂයේ නායකත්වයේ සජිත් මහත්තයාට දෙන්න කියලා ඉල්ලීම.
එහෙම අපි එහෙම කිසිම ඉල්ලීමක් කරේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ යෝජනා කළා. සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමාට පක්ෂ නායකත්වය දෙන්න ලෑස්ති කියලා. එතුමා ඉල්ලුවේ නැහැ. එතුමා දැන් සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ නායකයානේ. පක්ෂ කීපයක නායකත්වය දරන්න බෑනේ. අපි කිව්වා නායකත්වයේ දෙන්න ක්‍රමවේදයක් තියෙනවානේ.
Nimal Lanka, who has stepped away from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna and is now supporting Ranil Wickremesinghe, expressed these views at a media briefing in Negombo today.
හැබැයි අපි මේ වෙලාවේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ මේ ආගමැති කෙනෙක් පත් කරන්න ඕ බෞද්ධ බලයක් අපිට ලබා ගන්න. අපි ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලන්නේ ශක්තිමත් විපක්ෂයක් ගොඩනගන්න. එතුමාලාගේ ඡන්දෙ දෙන්න කියන එකත් අපි ආගමැතිකම් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ ශක්තිමත් විපක්ෂي සමාට සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයාගේ විපක්ෂ කණ්ඩායමත් අපිත් එකතු වෙලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුළ මම හිතනවා විශාල අඩක් නගන්න පුළුවන්. නෑ එතුමා නායකත්වය දෙනවා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා නායක. මොකද එතුමාගේ ආර්ථික වැඩපිළිවෙලනේ තාම යන්නේ. නෑ එතුමා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට එන්නේ නැහැ කියලා පැහැදිලිව කියලා තියෙනවානේ. එතුමා හැබැයි අපිට නායකත්වය දෙනවා.
General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Attorney Sagar Kariyavasam, said that the possibility for them to contest under the flower bud symbol in the upcoming general election is high.
මහමැතිවරණයේ ස්ථිර වශයෙන්ම පොහොට්ටුව ලකුණ බැලට් පේපර් එකේ තියෙනවද?
අපි දැනට අපි තීන්දුව කළා තියෙන මේ ආකාරයට ඉදිරි දින කීපය තුල එහි වෙනසක් වෙයි කියලා මම දැනට විශ්වාස කරන්නේ නැහැ.
මේ නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයාට මේ ගමට මූණ දෙන්න බැරි හින්දාද කුරුණෑගලින් ඉල්ලනවා කියලා මේ රාවයක් එන්නේ?
ඒ සම්පූර්ණ අසත්‍ය කතාවක්. නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාගේ මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා කුරුණෑගල දිස්ත්‍රික්කයෙන් ඉල්ලනවට වැඩි යමක්. මොකද මේ වෙන විට දේශපාලන තලයේ අනාගතයේ දකින ජාතික නායකයෙක් හැටියට ඉතිරි වෙලා ඉන්නේ නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා විතරයි.
මේක මෙහෙවන්න බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා ඉන්නේ නැද්ද?
මේ පක්ෂය ශක්තිමත් පක්ෂයක්. බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා දැන් sannivedana කටයුතු ඉතාම දියුණු තත්ත්වයක තියෙන ලෝකයක බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා මේ අවස්ථාවේ ඉන්නේ කුමන ස්ථානයේද කියන එක වැදගත් නෑ. එතුමා ඉන්න තැන ඉඳන් අපිට අවශ්‍ය සියලුම ශක්තිය සහ මඟ පෙන්වීම ලබා දෙනවා.
ඒ කියන්නේ මෙවර මහමැතිවරණයේ ඇමරිකාවේ සිට පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ මෙහෙවයි කිව්වොත් ඒ පුවත නිවැරදිද?
ඒක කොහෙද කවුද කොහොමද කියන එක නෙමෙයි වැදගත්. අපි පක්ෂයක් හැටියට ප්‍රතිපත්ති උඩ ඉදිරියට යනවද නැද්ද කියන එකනේ වැදගත්. ජනතාවට අපි කියන්නේ ඔබ අප කෙරෙහි විශ්වාසය තබූ ප්‍රතිපත්ති උඩ අපි ඉදිරියට යනවා කියන එක.
A faction of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party voiced its support for the current president Anura Kumara Dissanayake during a media briefing held in Colombo.
මේ වෙලාවේ අපි කිසිම ඉල්ලීමක් ජාතික ජන බලවේගයෙන් ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ. අපි ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ අපිට ප්‍රාදේශීය මට්ටමේ දේශපාලන නායකත්වයක් තිබෙනවා. අපිට ඔබේ යාන්ත්‍රණයට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න වැඩපිළිවෙලක් සකස් කරලා දෙන්න විතරයි. ඔබතුමාලාට අපි පැහැදිලිව කියන්නම් සංවිධායකවරු දැනට 40 දෙනෙකුට වඩා අපිට ප්‍රකාශ කරලා තියෙනවා යම් තීරණාත්මක වැඩපිළිවෙලකට එනවා නම් අපි ඔබතුමාලාත් සමග හිට ගන්නවා කියලා.
දැන් මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? සියලුම තක්කඩි ටික සියලුම දූෂිතයෝ බරපතල ලෙස කලබලලා තියලා මොකද නැවත අපිට හොරගම් කරන්න අවස්ථාවක් හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ.
වරද්දගෙන අන්තිම කාලේ හරි අපි හරි මාවතකට ආවා කියලා අපිට
ජනතාව හිනාන් ගියේ නැති
මිනිස්සු හිනාවේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. නමුත් අපි කියන්නේ ඇත්ත.
අපි මෙතෙක් කාලයක් මේ කාලකණ්ණි දේශපාලඥයින්ට යන්යන් වශයෙන් උදව් කරපු පාපයෙන් මිදෙන්න තමයි මේක කරන්නේ. ඒ පාපයෙන් මිදෙන්න.
මැතිතුමා අපි එතෙන්ට එකතු වෙන්නේ නැහැනේ. අපි මේ සහයෝගයක් දෙනවා විතරයි. අපි අඩුම ගානේ ප්‍රාදේශීය සභාවකටවත් ඉල්ලන්න ඕනේ කියලා අපි ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලලා නැහැ.
නෑ ඔයගෙන් මේක ප්‍රශ්නයක් අහන්න. ඒ පාර පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ඉල්ලනවද? නෑ. අත උස්සර කියන්නේ.
ඔව් අත් දෙකම උස්සන අත් දෙකම.
මේ කොළ ටික බෙදන්න මේ රැස්වීම සංවිධානය කරන්න ඒ වගේ මැතිවර ව්‍යාපාරය තුල යම් කිසි දෙයක් කිව්වද
දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ රැස්වීම තියෙනකොට අපිට කියන්නේ නැහැ කියමුකෝ. අපි යන්නේ නැහැ. අපි රැස්වීම තියලා කියනවා දෙන්න මාලිමාවට ඡන්දේ.
ඔව්. ඒක නරකද? ඒක
වැරද්දක්ද?
Former President Maithripala Sirisena's son Daham Sirisena has officially joined the Maubima Janata Party today. He served as the electoral organizer for the Polonnaru electorate of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Effective immediately, he takes on the role of electoral organizer for the Polonnaru electorate of the Maubima Janata Party.
පහුගිය කාලය තුල ඔබ කවුරුත් දන්න අපේ පක්ෂය තුල ආණ්ඩු බලය නැතුව ජීවත් වෙන්න බැරි පිරිසක් හිටියා. පහුගිය ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ විදියට අපේක්ෂකයෙක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න බැරි කරලා ඒ වගේම මේ පක්ෂය විනාශ කරන්න දායකුණා කියන එක ඒ පිරිස ගැන මම සඳහන් කරන්න ඕනේ. මම හිතනවා අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය හා සමග යන්න පුළුවන් ඒ පැහැදිලි ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් තියෙන එකම වාම ප්‍රගතිශීලී පක්ෂයක් විදිහට මම අද දකින්නේ මව්බිම ජනතා පක්ෂය. පක්ෂ නායකයා පිළිබඳවත් මට ඉතා හොඳ පැහැදීමක් ඇතිවීමත් එක්ක මම තීරණය කරේ මව්බිම ජනතා පක්ෂයත් එක්ක ඉදිරි වැඩ කටයුතු කරනවා කියන ඒ විශ්වාසය මා තුළ ඇති වෙච්ච නිසා. මම හිතන්නේ එතුමා කොහොමත් ඔබතුමාලා දන්නවා ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ නායකයා විදිහට කටයුතු කරේ. එතුමාගේ පූර්ව ආශිර්වාදය ඇතුව තමයි මේ සියලු දේවල් අද මම මව්බිම ජනතා පක්ෂයට තනතුරු බාර අරගෙන ඒ වගකීම් බාරගත්තේ. පොළොන්නරු දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම හිතන්නේ මේ මව්බිම ජනතා පක්ෂයේ ඉදිරි කටයුතුවට එතුමා මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන එතුමාව මුළු රටේම මේ පක්ෂය වෙනුවෙන් ඒ සම්පූර්ණ එතුමාගේ සහයෝගය ලබා ගන්න.
Udaya Gamanpilla, representing the Sarva Jana Balaya, expressed these views at a media briefing convened today.
Sarva Jana Balaya තුල තාම තියෙනවද මව්බිම ජනතා පක්ෂය?
Sarva Jana Balaya ප්‍රධාන හවුල්කරු මව්බිම ජනතා පක්ෂය.
ඔව් නව සභාපතිවරයෙකුත් පත් කරලා තියෙනවා.
පක්ෂය ඉතින් ඒ අපි සන්දානෙක ඉන්නේ ඉතින් ඒ පක්ෂ වලට අලුත් නිලධාරීන් පත් කරගන්නක සුබ ලකුණ. අලුතෙන් කට්ටිය එකතු වීම සුබ ලකුණ.
What is the decision of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party?
ඔටුවෙන් ඉල්ලමක් වද සිලින්ඩරයක සහය වෙදෙන කොහොමද දන්නේ?
බලාගෙන ඉන්න ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ ප්‍රමුඛ අනිකුත් බලවේග සමග අපි සාකච්ඡා කරනවා පවත්වලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ අනුව ඉදිරියේදී අපි මේ සම්දානෙන් අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා.
හිටපු ජනාධිපතිතුමත් එක්ක සම්මානගත ඒගොල්ලෝ සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ නැද්ද?
සියලුම පාර්ශ්ව.
වෙනම යන්නේ නැහැ.
නෑ. දැනට තියෙන්නේ.
ඔබතුමාලගේ මොකද්ද සලකුණේ?
ඒක සාකච්ඡා කරනවා.
මේ වෙනුවෙන් රැස්වීමක් කරන මේ ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරට සහයෝගය දෙන්න කියලා. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ කණ්ඩායමක්.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයයි කියා ගන්නා කණ්ඩායමක්.
ඔබතුමාලා කට්ටිය දාන හැමතැනම යනවනේ තැනක් නැතුව.
නෑ ඒක. හැමතැනම යන්නේ හොඳයි ඉතින්.
The Podujana Eksath Nidahas Peramuna has decided to field candidates from the party for all districts across the island. This decision was reached during the executive committee meeting that was chaired by the leader of the party, former Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. Issuing a statement, the General Secretary of party, Dr. Ramesh Pathirana, said that they will be contesting the election under a common symbol.
Newsfirst with the people.
With the suspension of the fertilizer subsidy provided for this year's Maha season, various parties are now expressing their views on the matter.
Representatives of agricultural organizations in the Anuradhapura Mahawali Edge Zone expressed the following views regarding the matter.
Now that we have completed the presidential election, we are currently focusing on the general election. There is a court order to hold Pradesh Sabha elections. In that case, we are supposed to wait for all these to end in order to begin farming. You all know that we receive rainfall in October. So if the Mahawali Edge Zone is similar in November and December, we will be sowing crops in those months. We used to receive the allowance instead of Bandi fertilizer. This time we asked for the fertilizer to be provided and an opportunity for us to cultivate. We are saying that at this time, as people who eat rice, the government should give the innocent farmers of the country the opportunities that have been provided. Regardless of who the president is, we must allow room for these good things to happen.
Farmers in Polonnaru are also requesting that the fertilizer subsidy be provided for this year's major harvest.
අපිට වෙලාවට බත් කන්න ඕන වගේ සහකයට අවශ්‍ය පොහොර තෙල් පොහොර ටික අපිට දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වර්ධනය වෙන්න ඕන. ඉතින් ඒක කාල සීමාවට ලැබුණ නැත්නම් ඒ ගොවිතැනින් වැඩක් නැහැ.
අපිට මේ මාසේ 25 වතුර ලැබෙනවා කිව්වා. ලබන මාසේ 10 12 කට පොහොර අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. මුලදී පොහොර ටික ලැබුණ නැත්නම් ගොවිතැනින් අපිට අති ප්‍රයෝජනයක් නැත.
The All Ceylon Farmers Federation expressed their views on the fertilizer subsidy during a media briefing held today in Kurunegala.
විශේෂයෙන්ම මැතිවරණ නීතියට අපි ගරු කරන අතරේ
While we hold the election laws in high regard, we urge the Election Commission to reconsider these decisions, particularly in light of the practical circumstances and the nation's agricultural production processes. We respectfully call on the Commission to evaluate these matters from a broader perspective, keeping in mind the national needs.
අපි මැතිවරණ කොමිසමෙන් ඉතාමත්ම ගෞරවයෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
The Election Commission said that actions must be taken in accordance with the Parliamentary Election Act when a general election has been declared.
After the announcement of any election, there should be no promotional activities. At this moment, the laws related to the general election are in effect. All ministries and institution heads must focus on acting in accordance with the Parliamentary Elections Act. They are bound to carry out the necessary tasks to ensure a free and fair election.
The Election Commission has announced that immediately following the conclusion of the general election, it will initiate measures to conduct the local government election as swiftly as possible. Issuing a statement, the Election Commission said that a date for the local government election will be finalized promptly after the general election concludes. They also underscored their commitment to upholding the democratic rights of the citizens in the country. The Election Commission reaffirmed its intention to operate in compliance with the directive issued by the Supreme Court on the 22nd of August regarding the legally mandated conduct of elections.
The Supreme Court decided to take up on the 21st of February the appeal filed by the attorney against the order of the Court of Appeal invalidating the decision taken by the Attorney General to name then Deputy Inspector General in charge of the Western Province, Deshabandhu Tennakon, as a suspect in the case filed regarding the attack on Gota Gogama at Golface.
Deputy Solicitor General Ayesha Jinasena, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General, sought a date to support the petition. The petition was taken up today before a three-member Supreme Court bench comprising of Justices Murdu Fernando, H.M.D. Nawaz and Kumuduni Vikramasinghe. The petition states that former Attorney General Sanjeeva Rajaratnam had forwarded a letter directing that the then Deputy Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakon be named as a suspect in the case filed regarding the attack on Gota Gogama at Golface on the 9th of May 2022. The petition further states that the letter had directed for action to be taken against 32 suspects, including the then Deputy Inspector General of Police. The petition of appeal goes on to state that the then Deputy Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakon had filed a petition in the Court of Appeal seeking to annul this decision of the Attorney General, and that the Court of Appeal had granted the relief he prayed for. In the instant petition before the Supreme Court, the Attorney General contends that the order of the Court of Appeal is bad in law and seeks an order from the Supreme Court to set aside that order.
3 police officers who had mistaken the driver of an attorney as a suspect who should be arrested during the Yukti operation put him in handcuffs and questioned him on the side of the road, tendered an unconditional apology to the petitioner today. The petitioner was a resident of Kalutara.
The respondent police officers who are attached to the Negombo police apologized to the petitioner unconditionally in open court today. Senior State Counsel Maheshika Silva, appearing for the respondent police officers, informed court that the respondents had received a tip-off regarding a drug smuggler and had mistaken the vehicle number when they stopped and questioned the petitioner. She said that the respondents accept the mistake on their part and are ready to tender an unconditional apology to the petitioner in open court. After considering the submissions made, the justices advised the respondents to ensure that they do not make similar mistakes in the future. The matter was taken up today before Supreme Court Justices Preeti Padman Surasena, Achala Vengapuli and Mahinda Samyavardhana.
The Minister of External Affairs of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will arrive in Sri Lanka tomorrow.
The Minister of External Affairs of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will be undertaking an official visit to Sri Lanka tomorrow. During this visit, the External Affairs Minister of India is scheduled to pay courtesy calls on President Anurukumara Dissanayake and Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasurya. The visiting Indian External Affairs Minister and his delegation will also have a meeting with Foreign Minister Vichitha Herath at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Minister Jaishankar will be accompanied by senior officials of the Ministry of External Affairs of India. A delegation of 120 Indian Armed Forces personnel arrived at Bandaranaike International Airport for a 3-day cultural visit. The delegation will explore various locations in and around Nuwara Eliya. Simultaneously, the same aircraft departed with 120 Sri Lankan defence personnel who will visit Bodh Gaya in India. The official launch of research books focusing on the plantation community was hosted by Caritas Sri Lanka in Colombo. Caritas Sri Lanka Social and Economic Development Centre officially launched the research books today under the theme of Towards Mainstreaming the Plantation Community.
Those are the trees these children plucking. You saw a green velvet carpet laid there. Everybody likes it. Oh, beautiful, I love it. But unfortunately, nobody knows what amount of blood, I repeat, not the sweat, the blood pouring under those trees. The Ceylon was properly branded and Sri Lanka is not yet branded as Ceylon. That's what I'm trying to reach. The Ceylon tea is marketed as I think I should give a biggest salute to the Caritas for taking the issue up. Of course, that plays a major role in the Ceylon economy or the Sri Lankan economy. But are these people being compensated? All of us are enjoying the money coming from foreign exchange. Are this money being properly accounted and compensated?
These documents focus on the right to education for the children of the plantation community in Sri Lanka and cover issues, challenges, future directions and culture and identity of them.
Israel plans to continue its airstrikes with the Israeli military a short time ago, warning residents in southern Lebanon near the Israeli border not to return home. Israel began a ground invasion of the south this week and announced the death of 8 Israeli soldiers inside Lebanon yesterday.
Israel's military says 8 of its soldiers have been killed in combat in southern Lebanon, its first losses since the start of the ground invasion against the armed group Hezbollah. Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran, said it had destroyed Israeli tanks during the fighting and insisted it had enough men and ammunition to push back the forces. Earlier, the Israeli military announced that more infantry and armoured troops had joined the operation, seeking to dismantle what it called terrorist infrastructure in Lebanese border villages. Meanwhile, at least 5 people died and 8 were wounded in an Israeli military airstrike in the Bachura area in central Beirut. A multi-story building targeted housed a Hezbollah-affiliated health center and is just meters away from Lebanon's parliament and United Nations regional headquarters. This is the first Israeli strike so close to the center of Beirut, with other attacks overnight hitting the southern suburb of Dahieh. Iran recently launched an unprecedented attack against Israel, firing a barrage of missiles at the country in the latest escalation amid weeks of soaring violence and tensions in the region. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Tuesday that it fired missiles at Israel in response to deadly Israeli attacks against people in Gaza and Lebanon, as well as the assassinations of top IRGC, Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. Dr. Ali Reza Delkosh, the ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran to Sri Lanka, commenting on the missile strikes, said that the inaction and incapacity of the Security Council to fulfill its primary duty of maintaining international peace and security and preventing aggressions, along with the repeated and blatant violations of fundamental principles of international law, including humanitarian law and human rights, left Iran with no option but to exercise its legitimate right under international law to take legal action in self-defense of its national security and vital interests. He said that the Islamic Republic of Iran is prepared to take immediate, decisive and stronger action than before in self-defense under international law in the event of any further aggression by the Zionist regime. The ambassador said that Iran continues to call for immediate and effective action from the United Nations Security Council to prevent threats to regional and international peace and security by the Zionist regime and to end the war in Gaza, which is a source of tension and crisis in the Middle East. This requires an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, the complete withdrawal of occupying Israeli forces from this area, and the cessation of attacks and aggressions against Lebanon. The Sri Lankan ambassador to Israel, Nimal Bandara, said that all flights between Sri Lanka and Israel have been suspended until the 7th of October. This decision follows the suspension of flight operations at Tel Aviv airport due to Iranian attacks. The embassy has advised individuals who had planned to travel between the two countries before the 7th of October to reschedule their flights. Ambassador Bandara assured that all Sri Lankans currently in Israel are safe. He added that preparations are in place to handle any potential emergency situations that may arise. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the Sri Lanka embassy in Beirut is maintaining constant contact with Sri Lankan associations and individual Sri Lankans registered with the embassy. Ambassador Kapila Jayavira and officers of the Sri Lanka embassy are providing assistance to Sri Lankans as required. Apart from a few Sri Lankans who have been stranded and for whom the embassy has arranged shelter, no Sri Lankans have been seriously affected by the situation so far. Subramaniam Iswaran, a senior cabinet minister in Singapore's government, has been sentenced to 12 months in prison in a high-profile trial that has gripped the wealthy nation. Subramaniam Iswaran, a senior cabinet minister in Singapore's government, pleaded guilty to accepting gifts worth more than 403,000 Singaporean dollars while in public office, as well as obstructing the course of justice. The gifts included tickets to the Formula 1 Grand Prix, a Brompton T-Line bicycle, alcohol and a ride on a private jet. Justice Vincent Huing, who oversaw the case in Singapore's High Court, emphasized that the former transport minister's crimes were an abuse of power and jeopardized people's trust in public institutions. He further noted that Iswaran seemed to think he would be acquitted. Iswaran will report to prison on the 7th of October. Bangladesh beat Scotland by 16 runs in the first match of the ICC T20 Women's World Cup, which got underway today.
The ICC T20 Women's World Cup includes 10 teams and the tournament is being played in the United Arab Emirates. In the first round, the teams will play in two groups. The first match in Group B between Scotland and Bangladesh was played in Sharjah. After winning the toss, Bangladesh decided to bat first. Opening the innings, Shati Irani scored 29 and the top scorer for Bangladesh was Shobana Mostari with 36 runs. Scotland's bowlers ensured that none of the other batters surpassed 20 runs as Saskia Holi bagged 3 wickets, conceding only 11 runs. Bangladesh put up a total of 119 for the loss of 7 wickets. Scotland, who were chasing a target of 120, lost their first 2 wickets for 31 runs. Both skipper Catherine Bryce and Alyssa Lister were only able to score 11 runs each, while Sarah Bryce was unbeaten on 49 runs. Scotland only managed to score 103 runs for the loss of 7 wickets in their allotted 20 overs.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight.
Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care and good night.